And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Alix Steel here to help take you through the closing bell, a global simulcast. It starts right now with Scarlet Fu alongside us in the television studio. Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth as we welcome our audiences across all of our platforms, including our partnership with YouTube. A day where we're looking at an S&P having its best day since February of this year. The NASDAQ 100, Carol, having its best day since February of last year.
I don't know about you guys, but I lost count of how many times Fed Chair Jay Powell said September, and I feel like that specificity was so important and
I know,
a key
I thought
takeaway.
at some point like Earth, Wind, and Fire was just going to like pop out.
I love that you think that way. Cue the song, cue the song.
Okay, though to be fair, he did say we've made no decisions about future meetings, and it includes September. We'll be data dependent, but not data point dependent.
September.
I didn't hear September in that part.
Yeah, I'm just going to say.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're setting it. I mean, I think the question is, are they dragging their feet or are they taking baby steps? And how you kind of look at that. I saw notes from a lot of economists referring to either one of those.
Well, I mean, he needs to create room for optionality, and he certainly gets that with Jackson Hole in late August. So you wonder how much they're going to say September at Jackson Hole as well.
It'll be interesting to see whether he uses that platform. It's kind of interesting. We heard from Bill Dudley during the Fed special. He kind of talked about this idea here that if the Fed does indeed cut that first rate cut, he thinks they have to keep going. They can't do like what you're seeing over there in the ECB as sort of do one and then wait. That if this is going to be an easing cycle, in his words, it needs to be an actual cycle.
And he said several, right? Like he said
Yes.
the word several.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what the word several actually means. Is that 7 or is that more like 3 or 4?
That next meeting, of course, September 17th, 18th. Apologies to Earth, Wind, and Fire that it did not schedule it for the 21st. We get the closing bells here in New York on this Fed day, Wednesday here, with a lot of earnings set to cross the wire. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 100 points or 0.2%. The S&P 500 up about 1.6%, while the NASDAQ Composite higher by 2.6%. And the Russell 2000 also in the green by about 0.5%. Carol.
All right, folks, let's get to Qualcomm earnings. Great read on certainly the smartphone market. So let's get to it. Let's get to the outlook. Fourth quarter revenue, $9.5 billion to $10.3 billion. So kicking it up, the estimate on the street is $9.7 billion. Fourth quarter adjusted EPS, $2.45 a share to $2.65. The estimate is $2.45. So again, upping both the top and bottom line. Go backwards. Third quarter adjusted revenue, $9.39 billion. That's a beat versus the estimate of $9.21 billion on the street. And third quarter adjusted EPS, $2.33 a share. That's 9 pennies better than what the street was expecting. And that stock you're seeing up 3% here in the aftermarket.
Yeah, certainly waiting for some commentary. The company has not updated its financial results on the website yet, so we don't have the press release. But it does see fourth quarter revenue 9.5 to 10.3 billion. Estimates for 9.7 billion. Shares up by 5.3%.
And just quick mention here with NVIDIA's move today. It was the biggest gainer in the NASDAQ 100. On that positive note out of Morgan Stanley, it added $329 billion in value today. That is the most in market history. $329 billion.
Yeah, I was looking at the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index earlier today, and up the most going back to late 2022. Everything in there other than Skyworks and Energous were in
Incredible.
the green, and solidly in the green, too.
Yeah, well, batch of semiconductor, right? ASML getting a boost, right? There's some exemptions maybe when it comes to some of the chip equipment makers. ADM, Advanced AMD rather, Advanced Micro Devices, right? Also their report upbeat in terms of their forecast. So there was a lot of news, I felt like, in the chip space.
Intel making some big news yesterday with layoffs. So, yeah.
And it'll be interesting, too. We get Intel reporting tomorrow, too. So maybe some of that gloom and doom or these doubts here about some of these chip companies, maybe they'll start to ratify some of those valuations. In fact, we're getting more earnings right now out of ARM Holdings, too. Of course, a big one there with that company providing guidance saying that revenue for the quarter going to come in at about $780 to $830 million. So basically a preview here of that second quarter and the revenue in the most recent quarter, the past first quarter, fiscal first quarter, a beat there as well. 939 million. Street was looking for 906.
Yeah, that's a pretty incredible number. Also, just go back to Qualcomm for a moment. They're taking a look at that fourth quarter revenue on the high end of $10.3 billion. That beats estimates. Also taking a look at the individual segments, right? You have QCT, which is basically what they make for their phone chips. That's coming in quite strong on the high end of about $8.7 billion for the fourth quarter. So these are solid numbers when it comes to guidance. Their licensing revenue also on the high end, coming at $1.55 billion on the high end for the fourth quarter.
You know, a lot of it will depend on on what they say also in the conference call about their outlook for the following fiscal year, because that's when Apple's new generation of iPhones come in and the refresh cycle that's supposed to take place there. They're going to provide a really important read on demand from Apple.
Is this new phone, is this the one that folds?
No,
this
not
is
yet.
just AI stuff.
No.
Are you looking forward to that one?
Man.
You want the
No.
fold
You got to
thing?
wait a few years for
I'm
that
over
one.
folding.
Samsung does have a folding phone out.
I've
but
heard, yeah.
Apple, not yet.
Yeah, one
If that happens.
Yeah.
If that happens.
If it happens. But it will be AI capable, right?
We're also going to
new
look
phone,
for
yeah.
we're going to look for some commentary out of Qualcomm in terms of China specifically, also AI. Certainly, that's an aspect for them. But this is, we've seen in terms of some of the phone market and the handset market some weakness. So we're looking, for more commentary about kind of demand later in this year and what it says about maybe the strength or the comeback, if you will. But you are seeing Qualcomm now, guys, up about 7% here in the aftermarket. This is building on a more than 20% gain here in 2024.
Yeah, they did update at Investor Relations website, so I am able to look through the press release. Cristiano Amon said that third quarter results reflect strong execution of our growth and diversification strategy. With QCT quarterly revenues and EBT margins at the high end of guidance, we're excited about the launch of Snapdragon Series X solutions for PCs and personalized AI experiences. It represents a significant milestone in our transformation from a communications company to a leading intelligent computing company.
I am curious to see how they articulate their longer-term future, particularly given all the reporting we've done at Bloomberg about Apple trying to basically distance itself from Qualcomm with its own chips and things. And obviously that's been pushed back, according to Mark Gurman. But at some point, this is something that Qualcomm is going to have to confront head on.
I just want to hit on ARM Holdings just for a moment here. So just a reminder, their first quarter results came in about 40 cents a share. That beat their revenue, also beat their second quarter forecast. I mean, it looks pretty solid on an adjusted earnings basis. The high end just met in terms of revenue. They see on the high end of $830 million. You look at the operating expenses, though, that could be higher than estimated, coming in at $500 million versus $472.7 million. So note on that, that stock is down 5%.
Okay, we just got earnings out of Meta. So let's take a look at second quarter numbers here. Meta Platform second quarter family of apps revenue, that's the biggest part of its business, $38.7 billion, better than what analysts had expected. The platform's second quarter Reality Labs, a small part of its business, $353 million, missing the average analyst estimate of $376.9 million. As for the second quarter revenue overall, 39.07, beating the consensus estimate of 38.34, and the outlook for this quarter revenue, $38.5 billion to $41 billion. Analysts were looking for $39.16 billion, and capex for the full year, $37 billion to $40 billion. It had previously seen $35 billion to $40 billion. Analysts were looking for somewhere in the middle of the lower end of that range, $37.5 billion. So like all the other big tech companies, Carol, increasing its spending here.
Well, and this is going to be potentially worrisome, right? When they talked about it last time, we saw certainly the stock take a hit. So giving some clarification around it, but it's not like they're reining it in. The street was looking for it to maybe pull it in even more. If you look at the top end, they're saying it could go to as much as for the fiscal year up to $40 billion. The estimate on the street was below that by about $2.5 billion. So we're looking at Meta Platforms, though, up 8% here in the aftermarket. Also talking about fiscal year total expenses, 96 to 99 billion, a bit of a gap there. The street estimate is 97.73. So again, that can be on the higher end. But again, right now, Wall Street seems to be taking it in stride here.
I think it's notable what Mark Zuckerberg said in the press release, that he led with AI. He doesn't talk about the family of apps and the record revenue that they had there. He said we had a strong quarter. Meta AI is on track to be the most used AI assistant in the world by the end of the year. We've released the first frontier level open source AI model. We continue to see good traction with our Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses, and we're driving good growth across our apps. So he does mention the apps there, but he mentions the Ray-Bans before the apps there. I mean, that's like a tiny part of their business, but maybe that's where he sees the growth of the company.
Maybe that's where he does see the growth, and of course that feeds the conspiracy theories about those tan lines that we were talking about last week.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Kind of interesting as well, too, when we talk about CapEx, how that CapEx spend basically staying in line with estimates for 2024, a ramp up in 2025. But I thought it was also interesting, too. I was looking at some of the ad numbers here, and ad impressions coming in, growth of about 10%, which was slightly below what the street was looking for, and a huge drop from the prior prior quarter a year ago, when we had about 34% growth, though, that was probably a bit of an outlier.
I just want to highlight for a second the Reality Labs thing. So Reality Labs is saying operating losses will continue for 2024. Their operating loss for the second quarter came in at $4.49 billion. So just to contrast the fact that that area of their segment, right, their virtual reality is losing billions of dollars. It will continue to lose billions of dollars this year, yet CapEx will still be on that high end of $40 billion. How do you reconcile that as a shareholder?
Is it maybe
Ray-Bans.
because the quarter that I just reported on, maybe because there are some beats there, and so maybe they think that they can manage the expectations? It's pretty kind of mind-blowing, because I would have anticipated that the stock would have traded lower on all of those costs. Right now, Meta is up about 5% here. You've got Qualcomm up about 4.7% in the aftermarkets, ARM holding down 7%, Etsy also out, and it's gaining about 2.9% in the aftermarket. So a big drop of earnings. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.